Hi guys, I'm Daddy Freeze, convener of the Free the Sheeple movement and leader of the Free Nation in Christ. I greet you and I bring glad tidings. Regulating social media. Here's my honest take. With the language of social media gaining fluency in this part of the world, many people in many quarters are getting uncomfortable with this and are trying all their possible methods in which they can either totally ban or at least regulate social media. And as much as they try to make the narrative explicit, oh yeah, social media is used for propagating false news, and that's true, and so many other things, you see that the narrative is beginning to get convoluted. And here is an honest take. This is what I believe. One, social media is already regulated. Facebook has regulations. We all saw this during the COVID-19 pandemic. You can't just wake up and make a claim and expect not to be shut down. It happened to everyone. Even I had posts that I put up on Facebook and Instagram that were removed because I took something from someone who wasn't accredited to give their analysis or to give a verdict on a subject matter. Now there's also what you call user regulation. If I come out now and I make a claim, for instance, that cats are dogs and dogs are cats, veterinarians, pet lovers, animal experts will all come out on social media and tackle me and balance out the narrative. That is already a form of regulation that we cannot take for granted. Now there's another form of regulation called the legal regulation. Somebody goes out and says, for instance, Daddy Freeze took my money and I didn't take their money. Very simple. I get in touch with my lawyers who file papers and we address it in court. However, if what you're trying to achieve cannot be legally redressed because it borders on restricting a human being's right to express themselves, you know the court is not going to grant you that order. You know you can't balance it out as a narrative on social media. And you know the social media platforms themselves are not going to restrict people from voicing out their opinion. You are now seemingly trying to squash them with your might to prevent people from airing their views. And I see that as unconstitutional. I see that as a fundamental breach of I see that as a breach of our fundamental human right, and I do not think it is the way forward, especially in a country that, like I said earlier on, has started gaining fluency in the language of social media. So, here's what I advise. As difficult as it is, the Sorosuke generation, the generation that refuses to be silent, the generation that refuses to accept things without questioning them, have to be conversed with. We have to do this together as a collective. We cannot impose anything upon this generation. They're not going to take it from us. We have to work with them. So if you have a narrative, for instance, if you feel that social media is misrepresenting something, why don't you talk to the leaders of the youth? Get into dialogue, discuss, reach a compromise, and then let them be able to take the narrative to the people who look up to them. Oh yes, social media is dangerous. Don't get me wrong. We remember the story of the pilot who had the incident in Ikeja, the helicopter pilot, and celebrities were claiming that, oh, he dumped his fuel and saved everybody. Meanwhile, the narrative is becoming clearer now. It looks more like he ran out of fuel, so it's seemingly or it's looking like he could be at fault. He's no longer that unconditional hero that social media painted him to be. And we see issues like this in many quarters. So, yes, we need to address what's wrong on social media without stifling the voices of the people. The people already feel like they're restricted. They already feel like they don't have a say. The youths don't feel involved in the Nigeria process. And the little involvement that they think they have, where they can actually air their views, is now under threat of regulation. There's so many things that need to be regulated in Nigeria, and social media, as far as I'm concerned, is not a priority. Yes, there are issues with social media, but don't you think there are better ways to address those issues? If somebody says something to you that you find so hurtfully wrong or so misinformative, or you feel that what they're saying is dangerous, take them to court. Sue them. Write to Facebook and say, for instance, this thing that the freeze is saying, we don't like it, or it is adversely affecting. Then Facebook will review it and then come back to you and say, okay, what he has said, we don't see what is wrong in it. Or what he has said, it is true. This thing he has said can actually affect Nigeria as a whole, or West Africa, or it can put pressure on a minority group, or incite violence, or whatever it is that that they think it is, and then they can take the necessary steps. But it is unfair to just place outright regulations or restrictions on social media and then expect the youth not to complain. Social media is where the children, quote and unquote, are beaten, where the children that are beaten go to cry. You can't beat them and tell them not to cry. And social media is also very useful for our leaders who understand its merits, our leaders who have the interests of the people at heart. You see, you leaders also need to understand that the way you people did things 20 years ago, if you are trying to do it like that now, it will not work. Leaders that understand the pulse of this new language called social media would be able to relate easier with their followers and dispense information better than those that think they can go to a junction and share rice or share gari or share one of the many things that they're known to share these days. So, message to my leaders: hire competent social media influencers. People who understand the social media, people who have taken courses in social media, people who understand media marketing and strategy. Hire them on your team. Explain what you want them to say to the public to you, and let them be able to say it to the public. Let them balance whatever narrative is out there that is against you. Let your people balance out the narrative. I think that's a good way to achieve even distribution of information. Somebody says this, you don't agree, you put your counter perspective, and people will come with all other sub perspectives inside the two main perspectives that are out there, and human beings are allowed the freedom of choice. Okay, I'm going to choose what the president is saying. Oh no, I decide to stay with the youths today. Oh no, I decide to stay with Daddy Freeze today. Oh no, the pastors are the ones I'm going to support today. That freedom should be given to the people. You shouldn't try to force them to believe, and this is what our traditions, this is what our leadership, and this is what our religions have done for eons. They have forced narratives down our throat, manipulative narratives. Your elders are always right. No, our elders are not always right. If our elders were always right, we will not have people like Galileo Galilei who challenged the narrative that the earth was flat. Because all the elders worked with the premise that the earth was flat. So when he came and said, no, the earth is round, if he didn't challenge that, today we will not have what we have today as science and technology that is based on the gravity and the fact that the earth is spherical. Look at people like Isaac Newton. They were able to challenge conventional wisdom by standing up to what everybody else believed to be true. Do you know that there was a certain narrative at a point that a woman only has an ovum, she doesn't have any part in raising a child? That is the man who comes to put his seed in her ovum. Today, we know that is wrong. But if our doctors, if our lawyers, if people who fought slave trade and all those things didn't stand up and challenge conventional wisdom, we would be stuck in all sorts of buffoonery. So yes, people have the right to challenge you. No matter how old you are, no matter how powerful you are. No, you see, also to the religious leaders now, none of you is a god. I'm struggling to even see some of you as men of God, let alone gods. Listen, you are not going to speak and people are going to faint. Your power in the supernatural that you try to propagate does not exist. People are not going to, and nothing's going to happen to people if they challenge you. You should welcome the challenge. And I'm so happy with the tweet I saw from Pastor Adeboye saying social media should not be regulated. He has been bashed on social media several times. So he's saying that social media should not be regulated is wisdom. If you're bashed on social media, it either means one, you're wrong, or two, they don't understand you. Both can be fixed. If you're wrong, find out ways of becoming right. And if they don't understand you, communicate better. I'm bashed on social media regularly. So what I do is, instead of fighting and trying to get social media regulated, I try to get my facts right, which you guys know Daddy Freeze. Daddy Freeze always gets his facts right. And secondly, here I'm a bit more guilty. Communicate my facts better. There, I know I'm guilty. Quite a lot of the times, my message is lost in the manner in which it is being transmitted. So I'm also working on that, because whether you like it or not, this generation is not going to be squashed. This generation is not going to be bullied. This generation is not going to be relegated. This Sorosoke generation is going to speak up. And it is going to grab the bull by the horns. So if you want to maximize the potential of this generation, you need to work with the generation. You need to speak with the generation, not speak at the generation, not even speak to the generation, speak with. There's got to be that involvement. Our youth need to be part of the process. Our youth need young youth representatives who will represent them to the government. And these people, in my opinion, need to be politically uncompromised in every way or form. Or else we're just dealing with the same narrative in a younger generation. There's something I need to say. Donald Trump is not a young man, and neither are so many leaders we have across the world. So old age is not necessarily a bad thing, because we've seen youths who are compromised, and we've seen elders too who are compromised. We need good people. Let's throw away our sentiments of age, ethnicity, religion, and let us focus on our goals as a collective. We can do this. I believe Nigeria is ripe. I believe Nigeria has potential. I believe our youth, and working with some of our elders who have not been compromised, I believe there is hope. But you cannot stifle the essence of this generation. You cannot tell them to keep quiet in the midst of oppression and hunger and pain and expect them not to talk. So please, let's look away from regulating or restricting social media and look more towards better communication with the people. Sometimes the people are wrong, but you need to make them realize that they're wrong. Sometimes it's going to take you a year to be able to convince the people that they're wrong. There's so many things I used to preach about 4 years ago that people are only beginning to believe this year. It's a process, and this is the reality of this century. We are in a democracy. Democracy, from my understanding, is a government by the people, for the people. If you don't involve the people, how can we claim we even have a democracy in the first place? So these are my thoughts, and I thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Please feel free to share the message. And remember, communication is so much better than restriction or regulation. If somebody does say something to you that you find so bad, the courts are out there, and I believe they're working. Take the person to court, charge them to court. But regulate social media as a whole, in my humble opinion, won't work. Because to me, personally, it sounds like you're trying to stifle the voices of the people who already have very little. Don't take away their voices. Don't take away our voices. Give us democracy. Give us the change you promised us. I believe in Nigeria. I love Nigeria. And I know Nigeria will work. God bless you all.